how are you treating others when your skin is not even as good?
Just because it's something you're dealing with doesn't mean it has to be what you are as a person.
I think it was my worst nightmare, to be honest.
Out of the work you did, that's what people judge you on.
Social media is not everything.
That like hit me because I was like, wow. It's time to get loud. Welcome back to Loud Talk with Lavi, a podcast where we break down the walls of beauty standards one flaw at a time. And today I have a really exciting guest. Please welcome onto Loud Talk, Kiara. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Lavi. I am so honored and I'm so pleasured to be here. And I'm just so excited to talk about all things beauty, all things skincare, and just kind of a little bit about your journey and my journey. And so I'm just excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you for your time. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So first off, let's just get right into it. I think one of the most asked questions when people see people like us on social media is like, why do you do what you do? Why do you post what you do? And what inspired you to even start posting so authentically in the first place? Because for a lot of people, that sounds like their worst nightmare, to put out this type of content online, have the world, see their real skin and see their journey and their flaws and their hardships. So what inspired you to do that?
I think it was my worst nightmare, to be honest.
Right.
I struggled with acne, as some of you would know, or you would know.
Mm-hmm.
I struggled with my acne, and I've been struggling with it since I was about 16.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still a continuous struggle that I have up to now, not as intense as it was before. But I think my nightmare was me posting on social media with all the filters, especially during like 2018, 2019. The filters were really big. And I was posting on social media with filters on, but I knew that behind those filters, my skin was an absolute disaster and had no idea how to take care of it.
Right.
Until one day I had this idea of, you know what, let me create a different account, because I had my personal account, and let me create a complete different account where nobody's following me, nobody knows who I am, nobody knows what I'm doing, and I'm just going to share what it looks like to have the skin that I have.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just where it took off. And then I didn't really know that there was a community as such. And then when I saw that there were girls and there were other people that I was helping with my own insecurity, that's kind of what kept me going. Mm-hmm. And what keeps me going up to this day.
That's amazing to hear that you kind of had that realization. I think what you mentioned there, like, so many people probably relate to that, where they're posting online with this filter and almost trying to create this like facade of themselves. And I'm sure you can relate to this. Like, did those filters even like help? Like, they don't really help you, like you think that they're helping you in the moment because you're like, oh, I feel good with it on. But I think all they do is just make you feel even worse about yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what it did to me. I absolutely loved the way that I looked with the filters on, because I kind of remembered myself being flawless at some point, and then looking at myself without it, I'm like, oh my goodness, it really took a toll on my mental health. And I remember when it was the era of filters, I just did not want to be on any kind of videos or pictures that my family was taking, or like, if I were to post on Instagram, it would be like just what I'm doing, but never my face in it, because I knew that, yes, I can use filters, but behind those filters, it wasn't really what it looked like with the filters on. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
No, for sure. And I think too, like, you creating that separate page, was it more just so that like it was like this new part of you, or was it more out of fear that people in your like close circle would find it? Like, what was the intention behind that?
Honestly, at first it was just for myself. I had it public. I didn't really know what it was going to be honest. I had no intentions of growing it. I just wanted to kind of present it to myself that, hey, this is your safe space. This is my safe space, and I just wanted a place where I can post whatever I want. And I knew that no eyes were on me. And eventually, if there were going to be eyes on me, they already started with the image of I have acne.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I have this makeup on and I have this filter on, which I had in my previous account, right? I only posted when my makeup was done or when my outfit was good or, when I had filters on. So that's kind of what I wanted to do with my account. I just wanted to break myself free from that
Yeah.
mentality of the filters are me, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no intentions of growing it, to be honest. I just wanted it to be a place where I can be myself.
I love that. I love that. And I think for so many people, social media is a very like daunting place because we have to kind of put out our best selves. And
Yeah,
like you mentioned there, just kind of creating this like different page completely where it was just your place to be you and it didn't matter who was seeing it. And I think too, like kind of starting that fresh, like you said, like the expectation with whoever joined and whoever saw it, it's like there's nothing that they're going to be surprised by because it's like, it's out there, So,
exactly.
and I think that
Exactly.
for many people seems like the scariest part because we think like, oh my gosh, like everyone's going to like freak out if they find out this huge secret that my skin isn't perfect, but
Yeah.
in reality, once you just like take that leap of faith, like at least that's what I felt. Like once I just posted it, like it didn't matter anymore that much,
Yeah.
and that like that fear, that like giant cloud above my head was like, oh, that wasn't as scary as I thought it would be.
Yeah, and there's such liberty to it, to be honest. I
Yeah,
feel not because you're trying to please people, but just knowing within yourself that, hey, this is currently what I'm going through. And, take it as it is or judge me for it or whatever. But to me, it feels good that, hey, I'm being real to myself.
absolutely. And I always kind of mention too, like it honestly feels like a bit of, especially when we struggle with acne, or there's so many other things too that kind of have a similar experience, but it's that lack of control. And I think putting it
Yeah.
out there and just taking a photo with your acne and posting it and not caring about it, like it's your way to just like take back some of that control and be like, I don't care, like I don't care anymore because I've
Yeah.
just like I've reached that point where it's like whatever, let's just post it. So
A
that's
hundred
super
percent.
cool. Super cool. So you're an esthetician.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about, your journey with that and what kind of inspired you to go into that field.
Um, yeah, for sure. For me, I actually just graduated last June. I'm not going to say April
Congratulations.
because I finished school in April and I graduated in June. But I've been working in the industry for about, I would say, a year and a half or two. Before I actually before I went to school, I was actually already working at a clinic. So I was helping out with facial, I was assisting with facials, I was assisting with laser hair removals,
Mhm.
body contouring. And it was such an eye-opening, I think, for me because an eye-opening thing for me because I just kind of remembered myself as a kid, how much I loved beauty
Mm.
and how much I loved just that industry. Because before that, just a little backstory, I was actually a flight attendant. And I got laid off during COVID. And I had no idea what else to do with my life because I was just kind of starting my career. But at
Right.
that point, I knew that it wasn't going to go back to normal as soon as I wanted it to. And that was also the peak of when I was struggling with my acne. So I was going to an esthetician. And then
Mhm.
eventually I became friends with that esthetician. And I said, hey, what you do is so cool. You're helping me with my skin.
Mhm.
How can I do this? Like, how can I do it for someone else?
Yeah.
So I worked for her actually for about, I would say 6 months before I decided to go back to school again because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do another program again and start all over again. So that's when I decided after 6 months, I decided to go back to school. And I went to school full time for 2 years for my esthetician program. And I finished with the diploma last June. And I was working for a clinic also. But I stopped just, I think, around August this year as well to do full-time content creation.
Well, congratulations on all of that. That's a
Thank
lot of
you.
amazing accomplishments, graduating from school and now doing content full time. That's amazing. But I think, having all that knowledge and experience is going to be so helpful even with your social presence too because I think one of the biggest struggles I know from my end as someone who struggles with acne is I feel like a lot of the estheticians I'll talk to have never even had acne once in their life.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
was that ever like a pressure point almost for you? Because did you ever receive like judgment, or were you ever afraid of the judgment where people might doubt your knowledge in skin due to how your skin might look?
110%. You know, practicing it also even at school, because we did have clinics and we
Yeah,
did experience working with a lot of clients basically at school. I almost felt guilty sometimes to be treating other people because I couldn't treat myself.
right.
I was doing a bunch of different treatments. I was using high-end products. I was using medical grade products. I was using, a bunch of different products that
Mm-hmm.
even took a toll on my pocket just to try to fix my skin.
Right.
Um, and I felt really bad. I felt really bad because there were people that would be coming in with the same kind of skin that I had. And I wasn't really 100% whether, I was going to be able to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
before I even treated them, I already doubted myself.
Right.
But I think what helped me a lot was being surrounded by great mentors at school and them seeing the potential in me and the way that I worked, the way that I learned, the way that I was always curious, how can I do something better? That's kind of what pushed me to keep going and just practicing and practicing and practicing with clients. And then eventually, as they come back, for their series, and they tell you, hey, my skin is doing better, like that is like my reward afterwards, because
Right.
again, the doubt comes in first before I even treat them. So at some point, especially when I was just at the beginning, I really, really was scared, because I was scared that people would say, hey, how are you treating others when your skin is not even as good? So that's kind of the tough part of that. But in the long run, I guess, with, you know, um, understanding who I was, I couldn't change what, I wanted to change right at that moment, but I knew that I can make a difference in someone else's. So I focused on strengthening that strength, I think, rather than focusing on my weakness.
That's so great to hear. And I think too, like, I'm sure you've gotten the comments, and I know I definitely have, from people who are like, why would I ever listen to you for skin advice? And it's always from people who have never had a single breakout in their life. But I can tell you right now that I would 100% rather go to an esthetician who's dealing with acne than who's never dealt with it, because it's like,
Yes.
yes, they might have clear skin, but it's just because like they don't like struggle with acne, and
Yeah. And they'll
having
never
acne.
understand.
Yes, exactly. And
They'll
that's the
never they'll
thing.
never understand, because it's easy to talk about ingredients, it's easy to talk about
Yeah.
treatments, it's
Yeah.
easy to sell treatments and stuff like that. Especially when the client sees that you have clear skin. But there's such difference when you see an acne patient
Yeah.
and you speak to them from experience,
Yes.
and just
From
the light,
personal
just
experience.
exactly, just
Yeah.
this light that you can see in their, like, through their souls, that
Mm-hmm.
hey, someone finally understands me. Because
Absolutely.
it's hard to even trust anyone with your skin to begin with, let alone someone that has never experienced acne. And so for me, it was a weakness at the beginning, but it really, really became a strength when people started affirming it to me that, hey, it's actually not a bad thing that you're
Mm-hmm.
an esthetician with acne, because people can really relate to you and they can understand where you're coming from, and they know that you also understand where they're coming
Yeah.
from.
Absolutely. And like, yes, maybe people who have never struggled with acne might not like want to come to you because like they might have that pre-bias already in their head, but you already know that anyone who struggles with acne, which is so many people, will
Okay.
want someone who shares that experience, because like you said, like we all know the ingredients and the science, and like, it's like textbook theory of like, if you have acne, you treat it with this and this and this and this, but there's so much more
Yes.
that goes into that experience. And like you said, like even with all those products and all the best, like it's still sometimes so hard to treat if you just struggle with acne. And I think acne is just such a like journey where it's kind of with you for life, like no matter what you do. And
Yeah,
even if you clear your skin, when you're acne prone, you're just acne prone and you're always going
you're
to
just
get like,
acting wrong.
it's
Yeah,
just there, you know? So, and there's so many things that you can do to like mitigate and help and kind of decrease the acne, but there's always just going to be like that random breakout every now and then or whatever when you are acne prone opposed to when you're not.
exactly. Exactly.
It's just the way it is. So because of that, I do want to pick your like brain on some of this stuff. So I know like online, there's so much talk about like medical grade skincare. So what are your opinions on that?
Oh my gosh, this is a tough question because I do come from the industry.
Yeah.
I, you know, I think, how do I say this? There are products for sure that work and they are on the medical grade side and they're on the higher price points of things, but there doesn't also mean that drugstores or, lower end or I guess more affordable skincare
Mm,
products don't work.
right.
I have seen very, very good medical grade um, products, products that only estheticians or only dermatologists use that you can't even practice with it unless you're under a provider. I've seen them work and I've seen them work wonders, especially for people with acne. I've seen before and afters. I've seen them work for me. But I've also seen, more affordable skincare products and even drugstore products also work,
Right.
So I think it's different for everyone, but it's a matter of finding what works for you
Mhm.
and what you feel, suits your lifestyle, because there are medical quote unquote again medical grade products that are way too expensive and work wonderful, but it's just way too expensive,
Yeah.
I love them,
Mhm.
and when every time I got samples from them from school, because, we have to test them out and use them for ourselves to see the results. I absolutely love them. And I wish I could purchase them all the time, but it is expensive, and, but there are products that are wonderful. I know a lot of people have said, you don't have to use medical grade products or products from estheticians or dermatologists. You can find it somewhere else. We can't deny that because I guess they study a lot more than people that just consume.
Mhm.
They work with that every single day and they work with skincare lines for a long time,
Mhm.
right? And they switch between skincare lines, and it's not easy for them to switch between skincare lines either. So there are definitely good ones out there, but not everything is good,
No,
you know?
I think that's a very important, statement right there. And in my eyes, like I medical grade and like I like how you put the quotations there, like it's a very like umbrella term, but also in my eyes, I see it as very clear as like over the counter, like non-prescription and prescriptions. Like, that's like the biggest differentiators and non-prescription, medical grade falls under that too, right? Because it's yes, you can only buy like at a clinic or something, but it's still not like a prescribed product. So
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest differentiator that people should like focus on. As you said, like it's really about what you want to buy and what works for you. And if that super expensive line fits your lifestyle and that's sustainable for you, then and you like to spend your
Yeah.
money in that place, like then so be it, right? So but
There's definitely a difference when it comes to some percentages of specific ingredients, when it comes to, again, like the ingredient list. Like there will be a percentage of probably retinol that only professionals can use,
yeah,
and it can only be used um, in practice or in office. And we just can't, like, as consumers, we can't get our hands on it because, again, it's not
exactly. Yeah.
prescribed, like what you said. But it also doesn't mean that, the ones that you can buy over the counter don't work.
Yeah.
It's just, again, the price sometimes of it, sometimes, not sometimes, but, you pay for the price of it. Again, if you're paying for something that has good reviews and of course is prescribed and is something that is from a professional, you will get what you're paying for in
Mm,
comparison to something that's like $5 or $10. There will be a difference when it comes to the effect for sure on your skin, but it's just a matter of finding what works for you, because sometimes even most expensive. If it doesn't work for your skin, it won't
It
work for
doesn't
your
matter.
skin.
Yeah, what the price
Yeah.
tag is, for sure. For sure. So, what are the biggest things that you learned kind of along your journey in school and everything that helped you the most with your acne journey?
Um, I think understanding that this is temporary, even at school, um, I actually learned from school that acne is not even the worst skin condition.
Right.
It's actually a very surface condition that a lot of professionals treat, a lot of estheticians, a lot of dermatologists treat. So that kind of gave me comfort that it's not as bad as I think it is. And it's definitely something that can be maintained.
Mm.
It's something that can be treated, and it's something that can be maintained, over time. And so I guess being like what I mentioned earlier, being surrounded by very good mentors and people that are knowledgeable and understanding and having them make me understand what my condition is really helped with my acne journey.
Mm.
When they made me understand what works, what can work, and what maybe is not working, helped with my journey when it comes to products that I should be using, I shouldn't be using. I had really, really great mentors at school, and they helped me with treatments that I should be doing and I shouldn't be doing. So just overall being surrounded by amazing people that will encourage you, I think was a really big part on my journey, even today. Like I look back and I still can hear the voices of my teachers at school, and I apply what they've taught me
Mm-hmm.
every single day. I think still contributes to my journey up to this day.
Right. And from everything you learned, what would you say are some of like the biggest misconceptions or like myths that people love to spew, like maybe some unsolicited acne advice that just like isn't right?
That your face is dirty is your number one. That your face is dirty, that you just have to wash your face, or just don't use a cleanser, just use water so that your skin can calm down. Stop using too many products. Stop staying up late so much, which is true. You have to get your rest. Um, and what else? I guess, yeah, just overall, with the products that I'm using, stop using too much, I think. Or, just drink a lot of water
Yeah.
and it will fix your acne.
Yeah. That's always the obvious one.
Unfortunately, that's the misconception
Yeah.
that a lot of people that don't experience acne
Right.
say.
Or that the sun cures your acne. Don't wear sunscreen.
Yeah, the sun cures your acne, or the sand at the beach will exfoliate your acne really
Right.
good. Those are, there's a bunch, but sometimes I like to be deaf on those things,
Mm-hmm.
instead of focusing on them, because it doesn't contribute to my growth.
Yeah.
It used to affect me a lot. And it used to really hit me a little too personal when people said that, because I'm like, if you can only understand how I feel with
Mm-hmm.
this, I think you wouldn't say things like that, or you wouldn't say that to someone. But again, like I think I've learned to grow thick skin with it. And so I kind of just ignore whenever they come.
Absolutely. And I mean, I always say like I feel like acne is a very much blessing in disguise because it teaches you a lot. It does
A
make
lot.
you stronger as well. But I want to deep dive a little bit as you mentioned like that a lot of those comments. So I'm assuming like you would obviously get a lot of those comments like online when you start sharing your journey from maybe, it hitting the wrong side of the algorithm and the wrong people kind of getting to it. But
Yeah.
I always think like the people who do say stuff like that have obviously never experienced it themselves.
Mm.
But kind of I just want to hear more about like how you did feel in those moments when you would read mean comments or when people would just say like, "Oh, just wash your face. Like, have you never picked up a cleanser?" The typical comments I think for anyone listening in on this episode that would be helpful to hear too, like what were the exact emotions you went through and what are some of the things that you kind of worked on over the years to kind of build up that thicker skin and not let those comments get to you so much or not feel them as personally as you mentioned?
Yeah, yeah. I would say I definitely felt angry. I definitely felt agitated, irritated, annoyed. I would question why they say things as such. Um, but that's at the moment, you know,
Right.
and when you realize where you're at and who you are, it, you know, it kind of stops affecting you. You have to control it.
Mm.
But I did feel angry and I did feel irritated and annoyed and, you know, all those things that I'm sure someone would feel if they were told those comments, because it's not a common thing to hear every day unless you're dealing with acne, unless you're dealing with a skin condition. And it's sad because, you know, people point out things that you can't fix within 5 minutes. And I'm not sure if you've heard
Yes.
about that saying, that if you can't fix something or if someone can't fix it, within 5 minutes, you shouldn't
Don't
be,
mention
you
it.
know, talking about it. So I feel, you know, I have also felt sad, because when people comment those things, it kind of reminds me and it brings me back to square one for a moment, because it makes me question, yeah, why can't I fix it?
Right.
Right? Why can't I make it right? Why am I still struggling with it? It's been years. It kind of gives me this flashback for like a good minute or two. But when I realize this, whoever is speaking or whoever is typing behind that phone or that computer, it makes me
Mm.
realize, hey, they don't know what they're talking about and
Yeah.
they don't really know who I am and they don't know what they're saying, right? Because I'm sure if it's someone that also struggles with acne, they wouldn't even say
No.
one bit of that,
No.
right? Um, I just always remind myself that people like that are people that probably don't have much to do in their life, or they are going through something and they just don't have an outlet to kind of release that anger maybe that they have within themselves. But I try my best to not let it get to me as much as I can, though sometimes it's not easy
Mm-hmm.
to not let it slip away, because again, it's something that I can see on my face every single
Yeah.
day. And it's something that I speak for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And something that I'm bringing awareness to. And so sometimes when people push the wrong buttons, I 100% feel those emotions of sadness and sometimes anger and irritation and all that
Right.
stuff.
I think sadness is a very associated term when it comes to acne, and a lot of us feel sad in our skin.
Yeah.
But anger, I think so many of us feel that, but it's not talked about as much. And when you said you feel angry, that like hit me because I was like, wow, you're so right. Because it's not just anger with that person commenting, being like, why would they say that? You know, why don't they understand I'm just going through something? But I think it's
Yeah.
also an internal anger of like, why can't I almost like get my shit together to figure this out? Like, you know, and I think how you
Yeah.
phrase that perfectly. And I think, you know, I'm interested, like, do you think that's kind of heightened for you because especially as an esthetician, you've gone through the schooling, you've read the textbooks, like you know that like A plus B equals C that has to cure my acne, and it's like
Exactly.
not necessarily doing that. So does that kind of infuriate you sometimes even more, being like, is what's like wrong with me in a way? Why can't I cure this? Because I know I have felt like that so many times. So I want to get your perspective there.
Yeah, I think at some point it did. I would say it doesn't anymore.
Okay.
Um, it the way that other people's comments or even my thoughts of why can't I get it right, the way that I had it before is completely different to today. And I think it's a shift within my mindset and my self-awareness also.
Mm.
I was really angry at myself even before, like again, like we've mentioned, why can't I fix it? And then not to mention again, like I went to esthetician school and I've gone to a lot of professionals and I've gone to a bunch of treatments. Why can't I fix it?
Mm-hmm.
But it did make me feel again like bad about myself at some point,
Right.
but it doesn't anymore because I've understood that, you know, this is something that I'm unfortunately dealing with at the moment currently, and I will gladly accept that because I know it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
But um I know that it's not something that I want either. But I think where it shifted is me understanding that I cannot let this thing be the driver of my life. I
Right.
cannot let it be the factor for myself to not live life to the fullest, because I know I'm meant to be doing bigger things than my self appearance, bigger things than my acne, bigger things than my insecurities, right? So at some point, yes, it did. But now I think I've shifted to the mindset of, hey, it may be an insecurity for you, yes. And it's also an insecurity for a lot of people, but you're a voice of a lot of people that are also not speaking up. And so I've kind of turned that angriness to something a little bit more positive, and not just positive for others, but also for myself. And I think once you understand that, it empowers you to not focus so much on the temporary, but focus more on the long term of how can I help others better?
Right.
How can I let them see themselves in my position, that if I was able to build this kind of confidence, that they can also get to this, that they can also build it for themselves. Right. So, yeah.
I love everything you said there, and it resonates with me so much. And I think something important you pointed out is how important a shift of mindset is. You mentioned that,
Yeah.
and then you also mentioned being more self-aware. Walk me through that. Like, what allowed you to kind of flip that switch, or what triggered you to be like, no, like this needs to change in how I'm viewing it, rather than, because at the end of the day, like we can't control what other people comment and stuff. Like you had the self-awareness to be like, this is me. Like I need to be the one who changes something, you know? So how did that happen for you?
I think the first step was definitely social media one, because again, that's kind of like where I became liberated to talk about it. I
Right.
became free, right? Even if at the beginning stage of it, I was like talking to myself. But even then, like I kind of picked up a little bit of confidence in it. If I can do this, for one person or two people, or just for myself, it's already making a difference. But that's a very small, I think, small factor of it, because again, social media is not everything. It's not, we don't post everything.
No.
We don't post the struggles behind. We don't post the people that help us behind it all. But I think the biggest factors that have helped me are definitely the people that I'm surrounded by and with. When they've discovered that I was talking about my acne and my journey on social media that they had no idea I was doing, at some point they kind of just spoke to me and said, I have never seen you with acne, even if I was like full of acne. I have never seen you really with it. And I only realized that you were struggling with it when I saw your post or when you pointed it out on social media. But I've never really looked at you that way. And I think that really molded my heart to kind of, and my mindset to kind of understand that, hey, it's not as big as you think it is, because sometimes it's bigger in your head than it really is in reality. Right. So really having having people that will encourage you and uplift you and strengthen your strengths, then weaken your strength, is a really big factor. I am surrounded by a lot of great people. I have a community at church that they're always there to remind me of who I am, and they are always there to remind me of, hey, these things are temporary, but it's important for you to get out of it, and it's okay for you to feel what you feel because you can see it physically, but it's not okay for you to stay in that.
Right.
So that's that. Social media. Second, are the people in my life. But I think third, it kind of is tied to social media as well, but the community that I've built through social media. Social media itself is different, and the community in it also is different, because I think when I started to see that I cannot believe before my eyes that my acne journey is helping someone else's journey, that really like pushed me. And again, like what I mentioned to you earlier, I wasn't really aware that there was a community that there was a community like this that existed. And when girls, because a lot of girls would message me more than guys, and young girls, right? When I would see their messages in my DMs, or sometimes even go through my emails, I just felt like I was being a voice to someone else's life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that really pushed me, because I at some point in my life, I also didn't know who to turn to.
Mm.
I also didn't know who to talk to about the struggles that I had, the insecurities that I had. And so when I started seeing young girls struggle with the same thing, and young girls saying, you know, I don't want to go out of my house. I don't want to go out of my room. I don't want to hang out with my friends. I don't want to go to study groups because I feel so bad of my skin. I just felt like there was a tear in my heart, because I just wish, I don't wish this upon anyone else. You know, I wouldn't wish anyone to go through that, because it's not a good thing. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good, I guess, mindset to be in,
Right.
especially. So definitely social media, the community in it, and the people that have been so supportive of me are the ones that have helped me shift my mindset from it's an insecurity to it's a blessing.
Absolutely. And it's so important to kind of have that realization. And like you mentioned, like it's always kind of bigger in our heads because it affects us, you know, and we think
Yeah.
that it should be holding us back and that we shouldn't be like as happy as everyone else because we are dealing with this thing. And yeah, like let's be honest, acne sucks, but it doesn't have to, like you said, it just because it's something you're dealing with doesn't mean it has to be what you are as a person. And
Yeah.
I think too, like with how you mentioned posting on social media, it almost keeps you accountable to keep showing up for yourself, but also for your followers. But then
Yeah.
one really important thing you mentioned was the fact that even for accounts like ours, social media is still not real. And I think that's where even more work can be done because I'm sure you get these comments too where people ask me like, I just wish I could have your confidence, you know? And that's the thing is like, although we show our skin, although we open up about it and are, you know, are a lot more vulnerable on social media than let's say like typical social media accounts, there's still that like block, I would say, between social media and reality where people just
100%.
see our good days still. Even if we're breaking out, you know, we're still posting it as, you know, I may be breaking out, but I'm like still doing good today. I'm still going to show up. So people who are breaking out and don't feel like they can show up are like, oh, this person is still better than me, you know? So I think that's the one part where there still needs to be a bit of work done because social media is just so like it tricks your mind. It completely fools you
It
with
does,
what's
a
going
hundred
on.
percent. And I feel like it's also important to kind of speak about, just because people like us post on social media about, you know, our acne journey and our breakouts and all the good
Yeah.
stuff, doesn't mean that we don't struggle. We
Exactly.
also
That's where I
still
was getting at.
struggle.
Yeah.
We also
Absolutely.
still struggle with our self-confidence. There's still days, even like just even today, as before we spoke, I looked in front of the mirror and I'm like, I look like a mess, you know? I think it's important for them to understand that, hey, even the people that you look up to, even the people that we look up to, that they still have their own insecurities, that they also have their own struggles
Yeah.
and things that are just not talked about online. You know, their life sometimes is not as great as it looks like
Mm-hmm.
online.
Absolutely.
But the thing that is very, I guess, that we cannot discredit is that, hey, what's important is you're still showing up, you know, because sometimes showing up is the best thing that you can do,
Yeah.
the best thing that you can do for yourself, or the best thing that you can do for others. But just because somebody's showing up doesn't mean that they're not struggling somewhere.
Yeah.
They still are. Everyone is.
Absolutely. And that I think it's so important for people to hear that. And like you said, like, you know, you had your struggles literally same. Like I woke up this morning, my skin was like I literally looked in the mirror, I'm like, oh, I only have like two breakouts, they don't even hurt. It's literally been like what, it's like the afternoon now, and I have like two cysts forming above my lip. I'm like, hello? Like you weren't here when I woke up. Whereas, you know, so
Exactly.
and like
Exactly.
that was like making me I'm like, oh, like I just wanted like my skin to not hurt this weekend, you know, and then that kind of led me into a spiral. So it's like even though we do post so much skin positivity content and all of that and are like advertising, you know, confidence and showing up for yourself, as you mentioned, like that doesn't mean we don't struggle with it day to day
Mhm.
too. And it's really just about kind of snapping out of it, you know, when you are like struggling, just being like, okay, like it's whatever, let's just move on.
You have
Um,
to.
yeah,
You have to shift, because or else you'll be stuck in that
yep,
bubble.
it consumes
And
you.
when you're stuck in that bubble, unfortunately, it also triggers a bunch of different things,
Yeah,
and a bunch of different flashbacks and emotions and traumas. And so it's harder for you to get out when you give it more time. And so you sometimes just have to pop your own bubble and just say, I have to get out of it and I can't
Absolutely.
stay in it.
Yeah, you have to force yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it doesn't feel right, you have to force yourself. And it's that whole fake it
Yeah.
till you make it mentality that really drives that for sure. So, what are the biggest things that you hope to kind of shift with social media, through your online presence? And also, I think the skin positivity community is expanding as well. Like, what are your goals and how do you hope to keep kind of inspiring, as you said, like the girls and boys who do watch your content, look up to you as like that person that they can rely on?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just I want to keep it as real as possible, which is what the whole social media account was meant to be for anyway. Um, I may not be sharing everything. I may not be sharing everything in my personal life, which is fine. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't either. But everything that I share online, I want it to be as authentic and as real as it possibly can get, because I know that a lot of young girls are watching,
Right.
and if I can impact the young girls in a way that can also change their lives in the future or even the now,
Yeah.
that's what I would want. I don't want to be a quote unquote influencer, a quote unquote content creator that just gets a lot of views and gets a lot of campaigns and gets a lot of followers,
Yeah.
and it's good to have all of that, yes, but I want to be able to be an impact to somebody, and I want to be a voice for someone, because there are a lot of people, including myself, which I was before I was on social media, that I just didn't know where to turn or who to talk to. I didn't have an
Hmm.
outlet to kind of just draw strength from. So if I can be that person for this young girl or this young boy or whoever it is, that's what I would want to continue doing. I just want to be able to be a difference in somebody's life.
I need to tell you because it's crazy how these things work. And I never really think like, I don't believe in coincidences personally. I always think every interaction, every conversation is with meaning. And when you were speaking there, um, all I kept thinking about is a word that I actually put on my vision board this year because it just like stood out to me for 2024, and that was impact. And then you said the word impact, and I was like, there you go, just
Yeah.
tied it up nicely with a bow. So
Yeah, there you go.
impact, like I remember when 2024 started, that was like the huge word that I was seeing in my brain. So I literally just like printed in huge letters impact, and I put that on my
Yeah,
vision boards.
it's a
And when
good
you
word. It's a good word.
it's a good word for sure. And I think, like you mentioned there, especially as this industry keeps growing and there's more and more creators and influencers and all of that, I think the most important thing for every single person putting out content is what is your impact. And I love hearing from you that you're so clear in that impact that you're trying to have. And it goes so much deeper than like skincare reviews or, making the content. It goes so much deeper than that in the impact you're trying to have on
Yeah.
every single viewer, every single follower. So I love hearing that.
Mhm.
And I do want to ask you, you mentioned, you want to be as real as possible, to the extent, like as you said, don't have to share everything because it is a part of
Mhm.
your life, but it's not your whole life. What does real, like the word real, mean to you?
Wow, that's a good question. I think being authentic and being true to yourself and understanding who you really are. Because you can't be real if you don't know who you are. You
Right.
can't be real if you don't understand your worth, and you can't be real if you don't understand what made or how you got to where you are today. I think being real, yeah, there's no other way for me to explain it than being authentic and
Yeah.
just being true to yourself. Real doesn't always have to be the best thing ever, right? It just has to be authentic. It just has to be what it is. It's as it is, right? Um, yeah, I think that's what it is for me.
And like you mentioned there, I like that you mentioned knowing your worth because I think a lot of people who struggle with acne forget that.
Mm,
And we struggle with that because we start to think that our acne determines our worth and that it minimizes our worth, right? And not just because I think as a society we put so much value of our worth on physical appearance.
yes.
So then when you're struggling with acne, that takes a huge hit of that. But I think it also makes you question your worth even in relationships, whether that's romantic, friendships, you know, family. I think it also makes you question your professionally too. Like I'm sure you, as you mentioned earlier, you felt this way in your career as an esthetician, right? It made you question that
Yeah.
and your worth in like, can I actually be, you know, a good esthetician that someone will trust if I'm struggling with acne? I know even for myself, like I'm not in that field, but when I started out my engineering job, I felt like people wouldn't take me seriously because having acne made me look super young. And I am young, but like it makes you look kind of like a teenager, or makes you look not as professional and not as put together. So I thought, oh, people are going to have these prejudgments of me. But at the end of the day, and as you mentioned too, it really came to show like out of the work you did, that's what people judge you on. And even if they do
Mhm.
make those biases right off the bat, like they will be proven wrong then based on the work you did, based on the work I did. Like, so knowing that worth and building that worth is so important, but it really has to stem from you rather than like outside
Yeah.
perspectives.
You have to understand it within yourself first, because people can only help you so much.
Yeah.
And they can only encourage you so much, and they can only provide the tools and the resources so much. But if you don't understand it within yourself,
Yeah.
it will be hard, because you're
Absolutely.
the driver of your life. You are the one that is navigating it. You're the one that is going to decide whether you're turning left or you're right. You're the one that's going to decide what thoughts to pick and what thoughts to let go of. And I know that struggling with acne or any other skin conditions, it really plays with your mind. And if you don't understand your self-worth, it's easy to be derailed, and it's easy for you to identify yourself with the conditions that you're struggling with. And so you have to understand who you are, what you have, and what you can do first
Mm-hmm.
before you understand everything else, so that you have a firm foundation of where you're coming from.
Yeah, you said that perfectly. And I think just creating those standards of worth within yourself rather than letting, you know, how you look or the people around you define your worth for you, right? And I think as you mentioned, like it can help and people's perspectives can help and the encouragement can help, but it really like if you don't believe it yourself, it's
Mm,
never, you know, it's never gonna, you're never gonna reach that point where you have that self-worth for yourself. And also too, like it's that whole thing, like if you can't love yourself and respect yourself, how the hell is anyone else gonna do that, right? So it's like you really have to get to that place first with yourself where you're like, yes, I know I'm worthy of love, I'm worthy of this, I'm worthy of this, and then
yes,
like the rest will kind of come into place as well with
a
that.
hundred
But
percent,
that's
a
definitely the
hundred
first
percent.
step.
It all starts within you first.
Yeah.
It does, because if you can't help yourself, you won't be able to help someone else either.
Absolutely. So, to anyone who may be listening who might be struggling with, especially, I think the one of the biggest things that acne affects is that self-worth and confidence. What are your biggest like suggestions that you would say to them if you could?
Wow. I remember this question being asked a lot on Instagram,
Right.
especially.
Yeah, that's why I
And
asked it.
a lot of young girls ask me this question, and it's funny because they word it the exact way. How can I get out of this? What would your advice be? And I always say this when I reply to them, I wish there was a formula to this. I
Right.
wish there was a formula that I can just copy and paste and give to you so that you know exactly what I did. But it's so different for everyone. And it's even so different for myself every single
Mm-hmm.
day. The way that I navigate through my insecurities on a day-to-day basis is so different. The way that
Yeah.
I navigated through it today is different from the way that I navigated with it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, number one, accept the situation at the moment,
Right.
but understand that it's a temporary thing,
Mm-hmm.
that it may not be what you want today, but it is what you're facing today. So just accept what is happening at the moment. But the next step that you should take is, how can I change this?
Mm-hmm.
And as you take that step of how can I change this, now move on with, who should I surround myself with? Because the people that surround you is the person that you'll become.
Yeah.
And so building your self-worth and building your self-confidence and building and understanding how to love yourself only comes when you are surrounded by people that love you, not just for who you are, but also for who you will become.
Yeah.
To me, that is very important. And I didn't really understand that until now. How other people contribute a lot to how much I love myself. Not in a way that, oh, I'm so obsessed with myself.
Yeah,
Not that
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But my self-worth and understanding who I am, they really do contribute. I can't give all credit to myself that I built my confidence just by myself. It was built with other people, through other people, with the help of other people. And so you have to find people that will strengthen you and that will help you in every single step of the way. And you can't let the little things get to you and let it ruin the journey that you're taking on. So my encouragement is just surround yourself with people that will help you, not just today, but will also help you tomorrow.
That's some amazing advice right there. And like you said, there's no formula, but I do think one of the first important steps is definitely kind of acceptance for the situation, but looking forward to what could change in the future. And I think with that too, like even maybe before that, the first step is the want to change. And what I mean by that is not just because everyone wants to get rid of their acne or whatever you're dealing with, but you have to realize it's more than just like a physical journey. It's so emotional, and you can take it into your hands, like you said, to recognize the blessings that may be under the surface of the acne.
110%.
And I think wanting, like actually wanting to change mindset and change to become a more positive, loving, worthy person alongside the acne journey, So because I think, yeah, like we can, go get different treatments done and try out different skincare routines and do elimination diets and all that, and that's all part of the journey. But if you don't also take on the self-love kind of aspect journey of it, the journey itself is going to be a lot
Yeah.
harder, a lot more
Yeah.
miserable.
And honestly, because I've seen the difference with myself too, that it shows it shows within you when you understand who you are.
Yeah.
And it makes the journey it makes the journey easier. And honestly, I personally think it also heals your acne because
Yes.
your stress levels are not as high
No.
as
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
right? Because you understand your situation. And
Yep.
when you understand your situation, it removes that extra unnecessary stress that you're going through. And now you're just dealing with the hormonal part of it.
Yep. Exactly. And kind of just looking at it as like this external thing that you're just working on, but
Yeah,
removing that stress from it for sure. Like stress, I always say is like for me, number one cause of acne, like all the time. So
same,
it's so
same.
important just like stop stressing about something you can't necessarily control and just take that away, but then kind of figure out, okay, what is within my control? Oh, my mindset is very much within my control, even if I don't think it
Exactly.
is. So working towards that is so important. Wow, some really, really great words of wisdom there, Kiara. So
Yeah.
I guess before we wrap up here, like are there any last minute things that you wanna share with the audience or kind of touch on?
Um, I guess I just wanted to say, don't let your insecurities get to you, to be
Mm,
honest. They're not as big as your future. Your future is
right.
much bigger than your insecurities. And again, these things are very temporary and you have the 110% control over them. If you can control them in your mind, you can control them in the physical. You can control your acne, you can control your other skin conditions, or you can control whatever it is. But as long as you don't get it to your head, it's okay for it to get it to your head for a little bit, but don't let it get to you. Your acne is so small in comparison to where you're supposed to be at, and you're meant for bigger things, because I've personally seen it in my life. And I know that it will also be the same for you if you don't let it get to you the way that we think it should, because again, you're so much bigger than your insecurities.
Absolutely. And I think like you're right here, living proof of that is like yes, you struggle with acne. Yes, it sucks, but look at the community it's brought you, right? Look at like
Yeah.
the opportunities it's brought you. And I'm not saying like, oh, acne is amazing, like, have acne just to have this. No.
Not
It's
at
like
all. Not at all.
it's allowed you to go on this journey where you practice self-love and have gained this confidence and know your self-worth, whereas maybe you wouldn't have learned that for a much longer time, later on in your lifetime if you didn't struggle with acne early on. So I think any bad situation, whether it's acne or whatever you're going through in life, you have to like accept, as you said, like it's okay to feel sad about it. It's okay to feel angry. And I think that's a normal part of it. We're never saying like shut out those feelings completely because it's so important to feel it, but don't let yourself sit in that dark
Exactly.
place and just be like, hey, this sucks. I had my cry about it. We all do. Like, I think we've all can probably say we've cried about our skin like a million
Oh
times, but
yes. Oh, too many times.
yeah, too many times. But have that cry, let it out, and then think, what is the purpose for me going through this? What can I learn out of this? What can I do through this journey to come out the other end just a little bit stronger than I came into it? So that's always a good
And that
mindset.
they're not alone. They're
Yeah,
not alone either.
absolutely. And like you said, surrounding yourself, like there's so many people, not just in the online community. I think that's one thing that social media has been so amazing for is just connecting people all across the world of struggling with similar experiences. And I think anyone who struggled with acne, I always say like we're all the same, we all have the exact
Yeah.
same experience with it, and we all come out of it. Like everyone I've talked to on this podcast that has struggled with acne, we all have such similar mindsets on how we view life, how we view ourselves, how we view others. It's crazy, and it goes so much more beyond acne and the struggle of acne or the products we use. It's like so many fundamental life lessons that we all have in
Yes.
common. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Like the amount of these conversations where I'm like, wow, like we all had that like epiphany just from dealing with acne that applies to every other life concept. Like it's actually insane, but
100%.
find your community. I think like you mentioned, surround yourself, and not just with people I think that can show you like love you for you and love, as you mentioned, even the future you, but also surround yourself with people who have found that self-love and self-worth for themselves too, because when you're around confident, positive minded people, there's it's so much easier for you to just like absorb that positive energy from them, when you're around
Yeah.
people that are constantly in a negative rut, like it's again like you are just going to be absorbing that energy as well. And I always talk about like energy exchange, and I think that's so important. But I think one of the easiest way to find people who can help is honestly through social media, because it's like
Yeah.
so easy to connect. And like you
Hmm.
said,
And it's
people
free.
send, yeah, it's free, and people DM you all the time with help. And what you're doing is so important. And I think for anyone struggling, having your content there as support and all that is really amazing. So I'm so happy
Thank
that
you.
to get to know you more in this episode. And I think some of the things you said, well, everything you said here, I think will really help somebody listening. And I'm really happy we could have this conversation. So thank you, Kiara, so much for being on Loud Talk with Lavi today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It has been a pleasure, and I hope that it touches somebody's heart,
Oh,
to
it
kind of
will.
just see themselves, in a way that they have never seen themselves before.
Absolutely. I'm sure it will. Absolutely. Because I think everything you said here was so important. So before we go, where can the people find you on socials? Because you guys have to check her out. Her content is amazing, and it'll just have you feeling so good on the internet.
Well, I'm on Instagram and a little bit of TikTok, just starting on TikTok, but I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Real Skin Progress.
There you go, guys. I'll have her socials linked down below in this episode. If you're listening in on Spotify or Apple or any other streaming platform, you can also find this full episode on YouTube for the video format. If you want to see me and Kiara's faces and us chatting here, go check it out on YouTube as well. But thank you so much for listening in. Make sure to rate this podcast a 5 stars, and let me know what you want to see next on Loud Talk with Lavi, who you want me to have on, or what topics you want me to address. But for anyone listening in, remember to tell yourself something you love about your skin today. Thank you, Kiara, for being on.
Thank
And
you.
you'll hear from me in the next episode of Loud Talk with Lavi. Bye, everyone.
Bye.